back, everybody, to the Land Between the Meadows, the Kentucky History Podcast. I'm here, your host, Jameson Cable, and today we got another author spotlight. I guess I should say director, filmmaker, producer, writer, a lot of hats on Miss Ashley York, who is from Pike County, Kentucky. Kemper, Kentucky, I believe. Is
Kemper,
that correct?
Kentucky. That is correct.
Yes. And we're mainly here to talk about her recent release. And I say recent, but it's been out for, how long has it been out? 2 years now?
Yeah, we premiered at the Nashville Film Festival 2 years ago.
2 years ago, wow. And her documentary titled Hillbilly, which you can watch on Hulu, correct?
That's correct.
Is there any other places they can get it?
It is available on Amazon and iTunes and, some other platforms. You can check our website, hillbillymovie.com, for that information.
Yeah, and I'll put a link in the description to that website as well.
Oh, that's great. Mm-hmm.
So Ashley, tell us quickly just your connection to Kentucky first, because that's we're a Kentucky History Podcast. Try to get anybody who comes on the show to be connected to Kentucky. And you're Kentuckian, so I mean you fit in pretty well. So
yeah, I'm definitely a proud Kentuckian. I was born in the great state of Kentucky in Pike County at the Pikeville Methodist Hospital. In 1980, I lived in Kentucky until I was 22 years old when I moved to Los Angeles. And I have visited Kentucky often, the whole time I've lived in Los Angeles. I've gone back, at least once a year, and multiple times, certainly during the filming of Hillbilly, which was great because, being able to involve my family in a production, was a true gift because we got to spend time together. I got to learn about them. We got to work on a movie together that explores Kentucky culture and history and the stories of a wide range of people who live there. So Kentucky is very dear to me, and I love it very much. And I'm a proud Kentuckian.
Well, and at this point, you still live the majority of your life in Kentucky, right?
It's almost equal at this point.
Yeah.
I moved to, that's not true. When I'm 44, I will have been here, the same amount of time. I turned 40 this summer. I moved to Los Angeles when I was 22. After I graduated from the University of Kentucky, where I studied for 4 years after I graduated from high school.
Yeah. So with this documentary, what motivated you the most to make this documentary? I mean, I've watched it 2 or 3 times now, and I really enjoyed it. And I really, I kind of feel like you get into the portrayal of how Kentuckians are portrayed. And was that the big motivation to kind of get on the stereotype, or just what?
It was, yeah. I mean, stereotypes motivated this film, and from the concept to the final delivery of it. When I tell a story in the film about being a young kid, 3rd or 4th grade, and seeing this 48 Hours program called Another America, which was filmed in Floyd County, which is right next door to Pike County, but they're often, synonymous in the news. And, that's part of what the East Kentucky image, has been in popular, media. I think that is changing, and certainly Hillbilly, we want to be, representative of, the contemporary media culture and, this vibrant place with a diverse group of, people from, so many different spaces. And that's what Hillbilly intended to do, was to highlight the voices of people that you don't often hear from. And the reason for that was because we wanted to be able to represent what Kentucky and Appalachia is. There are so many representations of it, but those are often, flawed or, deeply disturbing and hateful and, just so problematic in so many ways. I mean, there are positive representations out there. I mean, look, there are plenty of, October Sky is a film that we talk about and that we love, very much. I mean, that's just about a classic now, I think. But it's a beautiful film, that represents a mining town and the experiences of mining culture and multiple generations within that culture. And, it's about learning and science and reading and growth. And, I love that movie. And I think that was an influence for me that I don't talk enough about. But Hillbilly was, I mean, as somebody who grew up, seeing these images and being, impacted by them in a way that I didn't know how to talk about at that time, and even throughout,
Yeah.
moving to Lexington and experiencing, people from other parts of the state, treating me a certain way because of the way that I talked and because of where I was from. And it was just so apparent to them. And, like I have really, some hard memories from that time, painful memories. And I think that also motivated me to want to have a deeper exploration of how these media representations, came to be, what is the history of them, and, what do they mean to people, and how can we work to subvert them and to, help expand the perception of Appalachia and the people who live there. And also understanding that Appalachia is not just, Kentucky. I mean, Kentucky's not all Appalachia.
Yeah.
West Virginia is the only state that is fully in Appalachia, but Appalachia stretches from New York to Alabama. Many states. I think there's more than 20 million people in the region. There's a rich history of indigenous cultures, and so there's a whole history there too. So it is a diverse landscape, and the people are, and we feel so fortunate that we were able to work with so many incredible people who I regard as my heroes. Bell Hooks, fellow Kentuckian, who her work and my exposure to her work transformed my life. Frank X. Walker, brilliant poet, Kentuckian, who founded the Appalachian Poets.
Yeah.
Silas House,
yes,
a beautiful, brilliant,
great author
and citizen and human being. Silas House is an executive producer on the film. He helped us with writing. He's featured in the film. His family's featured in the film. His husband, Jason Howard, also featured in the film. Another brilliant writer and cultural critic and commentator. Just working with so many people. I mean, we do have this incredible ensemble cast in Hillbilly, and I don't often talk about the film in that way, but it's a incredible group that comes together to,
and most
talk
of them
about the experience of being Appalachian and what that means.
I was going to say most of them are from Kentucky. I don't think, is there anybody I know?
Oh, sure, there are people from other places. Roger May, who Roger May's a still photographer who runs the Looking at Appalachia project. He's from West Virginia, very proud West Virginian. Roger is, and he's featured, a time or two. And some of the scholars are not all. Not all Kentuckians, but the majority, I suppose, of the, the folks that we feature, throughout the narrative of the film.
And I think that was the co-producer. Was she from Tennessee? I believe.
Sally Rubin.
Yeah. She was
Sally Rubin. She is the co-director and also producer of the film. Sally Rubin. Her mother is from East Tennessee, and Sally is very connected in that way. She visited Appalachia and East Tennessee, like the Smoky Mountain region of the state, as a child. She always had fond memories of the place. Certainly aware of the stereotypes and the shame that people who are from there, what they experience. So she was moved by that, and once we met through documentary circles and mixers and things in Los Angeles, and became friends through social media, and then over time we connected and we met and we decided to partner on this film.
Oh, that's great. I mean, and that's one thing that drove me. I think I saw a mention. I think it was Silas House who mentioned it on Twitter one time, and I was scrolling through and I saw his mention of the movie, and I was like, well, I have Hulu, so I, of course, went and watched it, and I just really enjoyed it. And you talk about documentaries, and you talk about that's what happened. I watched that documentary, and then I went back and watched a lot of these older documentaries. The War on Poverty. And some of those, it just was such a negative portrayal of Kentucky. And I was like, man, this is, it just didn't sit right with me. I didn't, like the way. And of course, I've, being from Kentucky, I went to Lexington, moved to Lexington out of high school. just like you. And you talk about your deal or your involvement or events or things that happened while you were in Lexington. I remember a time when I went to Lexington and, I was sitting there talking to somebody that, I didn't know, somebody knew, and they were like, "Where are you from? Your accent." I'm like, "I'm from South, from Rock Castle." What do you mean my accent? I said, "Oh, and of course you have people like, man, that accent's so cool." And I'm like, "Where are you all from?" "They're from Lexington." And I'm like,
right, sure.
"What are you talking about? What do you mean my accent? Lexington is just as much, Kentucky." And I guess, when you get to cities like Louisville and Lexington, I guess there is a bit more, the accent may not be as strong, but, those things happen that kind of really connect you to, or remind you, I guess, of your heritage or just where you come from. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's very specific and distinct. There's something to be said about being from, again, I can only speak from my own personal experience, but being from Eastern Kentucky and, sort of what that means and what does that qualifier suggest and, who imposed that qualifier. I don't know. I mean, I know, now I identify as a Kentuckian, so I'm not so, I don't know, just sort of let that go.
Well, yeah, and it's just a reminder of your roots, I guess, and something that, again, and I think it was Silas who said it in the documentary. If my memory, saves me here, but your hometown or where you're from is a love-hate relationship. There's times you love it, and then there's times that you're like, man, there's the Kentucky stereotype, I guess, that's there. Yeah, it's an embrace, like you said, it's embracing your roots, embracing Kentucky.
Yeah, sure. I mean, people should be able to, be able to talk the way that they talk. And if you want to change the way that you talk, I think that's fine too. I mean, I think that there's plenty of room for people to speak in, all sorts of ways and dialects. And, of course, we privilege certain dialects over others, but there is no correct dialect. It's sort of like a zip code, I think. And it's like Kemper's 41539 and Hollywood is 90028. So they're both zip codes, but I guess that becomes meaningful, that becomes meaningful too in a political context.
Yeah. Another thing that I really kind of liked, you talked about Hillbilly Days, and that's Pikeville, right?
That is Pikeville. Oh, yes. Sure. Yeah. I think they even had it this year. Like, I feel like because I have a Google alert on Hillbilly, and I have for years, since we started developing this film. And so, Hillbilly Days popped up, and I think they had the festival despite the global pandemic. I may be incorrect about that, but I know it looked like it was going to happen. So it
would take a global pandemic to stop it.
To shut down the Hillbilly Days. I know, right? Come hell or high water. It feels like one of those kind of situations.
I've never been to Hillbilly Days. I've been to the Black and Gold Festival many times. And
is that the same kind of affair where you have booths and people selling
deep fried Oreos,
funnel cakes?
Funnel cake, yeah. It's basically a fair to put it that way. But yeah, I've been to the Black, Gold, and Hazard many times. So I guess another another basis. I don't want to get too much into politics or whatever, but you talk about the diversity or the diversity of Kentucky during, I guess, the 2016 election, and kind of point out that. But as looking at it from your perspective, I guess, I guess the point the documentary kind of makes is that the people in Eastern Kentucky feel kind of abandoned, and they kind of latched on to, Trump is the person who is going to help them. Is that kind of the way you kind of saw it, or?
That is true for some people. I think people support the president of the United States for a lot of reasons. I think that there are certainly people who feel that they've been, lied to or abandoned or ignored. I mean, my Granny Shelby, again, if we're going to be specific, which of course the specific relates to the universal, but, her specific experience, which a lot of people relate to, we've shown this film all over the, the country, and, it's starting to show globally, now, as part of an American film showcase. But people all over this country ask me about Granny Shelby, and she, her story has reached a lot of people, because I think that you sort of understand her point of view, which is hers, and I certainly do not agree with her support of a president who I find to be so dangerous. And just harmful. But it's her, and she tells a story, and I mean, it's actually we don't sort of get so deep into it, the way that I remember that. But I do remember, these floods would come every year, and these were devastating floods that would take days to clean up, and lots of water, lots of mud. People had to raise their houses, which I talk about in the film, and this was just what part of the way of life. Where I grew up, and what happened, about every year, every other year. And she would write to the legislators, and she was always trying to get support from the representatives and to get relief and insurance. And she'd have to do all this documentation, which is why those videos exist. But it was this constant struggle. And after years, I'm talking like decades, they finally bought out all the people who lived in that bottom. So she got to leave, and those houses. The last time I was there, the house was still there, but like all the people stripped the windows out and the doors, and it was just sort of like a shell. But there were some like old toys in the garage, which I pulled out. But Granny, that certainly motivated her interest. And then I mean, we can't sort of underestimate the power of popular media and its impact on somebody like my Granny. Becoming a fan, and I think fan, is very true. For Donald Trump, that he was on The Apprentice. He was this popular reality star host who had been in everybody's living rooms for however long. That show was on for so many seasons, and there was a familiarity with him that just was one of the so many oddities with him in that election, and the way all that came to be, where it's like this alternate universe just opened up, that none of us expected. Even the people who would never vote for Hillary Clinton and didn't like her, will never like her. They know this is an alternate reality, and that she won the popular vote. And, I mean, Hillary Clinton, it's just the greatest tragedy, I think, of my life is that she didn't become the president. I'll never get over that. I think the impact of that, and the the long lasting impacts of that, are just to even to be revealed. It's just shocking. But Granny, so yes, I mean, Granny, for her to go from someone who was like a Democrat all of her life, somebody who she's one of those Democrats that they said would vote Democrat no matter if it was a dog on the ticket. She loved Bill Clinton. Like, Bill Clinton came to Pike County, Kentucky, and did a talk. Your wife would probably remember that. My Granny went and stood in line when Hillary ran in 2008, and ultimately didn't get the nomination because Barack Obama did. They supported her. They wore Hillary Clinton T-shirts in 2008. So, and again, Barack Obama gets that nomination. They vote for Barack Obama. I don't know. I mean, I imagine they did. I don't know. I know they voted for him the first time. The second time, I don't know. Like, if that's when sort of this change started. But, in any case, the summer of 2016, when we were filming the youth media workshop, I stopped into my Granny's. She lives by the Cincinnati airport now. I would always see her. And, I just noticed some things that were being said about Barack Obama and his presidency. And, it was more the tone of it. It's not even the specifics of what was said. It was just this real disappointment and resentment and anger, like, how can this be? How can it be, that we're here? But now, there's a complete disregard for that. I don't know if people sort of look at their lives. I mean, I wonder now that we have 30 million people unemployed and 100,000 people dead, will people sort of be like, I do,
Mm-hmm.
really think, and I hope that Donald Trump will not get reelected. I mean, I just hope that is what happens for the good of all people
Mm-hmm.
on
Mm-hmm.
the earth. Um, I don't know.
Oh, yeah. Well,
Yeah,
I'm pretty
that's
sure, I'm pretty sure Kentucky's going to go red, but I don't know if it's if that'll, I don't think that'll
well,
change.
but who knows? Mail-in voting. I mean,
True.
like if people like it is it's like a different paradigm
It
now.
is
That
different. Yeah.
we're in. So this is gonna affect everything, and I'll be so curious to to see. And I surely do hope. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, on voting, I think it is important for us to talk
Well,
about that now and I think Hillbilly becomes very relevant this year
mm-hmm.
in this election cycle because of what we saw in 2016. We can look at where we were then, where we are
Mm-hmm.
now, what has changed, how have people's lives changed? Do they
Mm-hmm.
feel that, this presidency is really like what, is transforming their lives? Now, look, that's not to say that if all of a sudden Joe Biden becomes the president, that the whole paradigm for a
Yeah.
capitalist society changes because it
Yeah.
doesn't. I mean,
No.
these are huge systematic, like hegemonic value systems that are in place that are not not going anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Um but I just hope Donald Trump doesn't get reelected.
I understand.
I really do. But I think, look, I mean, I think a lot of people, what I do want to say is that, to say like sort of those people and people who felt left out or felt like they needed,
Mm-hmm.
like my granny who just
A
felt
voice. I
ignored.
mean, yeah, a
She felt
voice.
ignored, and she was active. She wasn't
Mm-hmm.
just somebody who was sitting around complaining and
Mm-hmm.
not voting. My granny has always voted. She's
Mm-hmm.
always worked. She is like a go-getter.
Yeah.
I think that I get like my mom is like that. I'm
Mm-hmm.
like that. My sister's like that. And she tried. Like she wrote
Yeah.
letters, she called, she just never got the support or relief or
Mm-hmm.
compassion that she was seeking. So that put her in a position to be annoyed and aggravated with the government. And here
Mm-hmm.
comes some big bully, and look, I mean, the thing is everybody is at risk at some point in their life of being
Yeah.
in an abusive relationship. It
Mm-hmm.
happens. And I think Donald Trump is like that person, like
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
think he's like, but people get attracted to that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think she got duped by him,
Yeah.
I do. And I'm hoping that, we can move, we can move away from that and sort of, move into a different phase of
Yeah.
history,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's the thing. And talking about history is, once it's happened, it's history. I mean, there's no going back and changing
Right.
anything once it happens. And I guess that that's the big, that's the power of voting. I know people sometimes get turned off by voting and this and that, and that you bring up the mail-in ballots. I mean, I about guarantee there'll be people who just like, I won't vote because I have to do all this extra stuff to mail it in. And you're like, well, come on, you can vote. All you gotta do is go online, and it's pretty easily done. But
Mm-hmm.
but
Yeah, well, we'll see. I mean, that will change the electorate.
mm-hmm.
I mean, that's for sure. But I think somebody has posted this thing that's been going around, which I think is worthy of including, because there is, I mean, there used to be a fear of people buying things on the internet or looking at their medical records on the internet or getting their prescription through the internet or banking online. I mean, these are all things that people had to, learn to do. And that was through, learning safe practices for doing it. So I hope that it'll be the same here.
Mm-hmm. 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 So there's so much to more to talk about, I guess. And again, not to get, I feel like, and a lot of times with definitely Eastern Kentucky, and we can lump all of Kentucky in it if we wanted to, but there's those times that I feel like Kentucky is sometimes just used when it's necessary to use, even when you look at like the war on poverty, or when the government gets involved. I guess you get these, and it becomes more of a just I think it was in the documentary where they were talking about they were just giving away shoes, a bunch of shoes to everybody, and it's like not everybody needed shoes. There was people that were doing just fine, and the whole idea of we didn't know we were poor, so until people started telling us we were, And I feel like a lot of times Kentucky, for sure, is kind of used in that, and you could say abused as well, as a political
Sure.
game or a political motivation. And I always think of, like, you always get these politicians that come in and talk about saving coal, and it's just I feel like it's just a sale. Nothing's being done ever. It's just a sale to, hey, come vote for me, I'll save your jobs until 4 years down the road, and I'll ask for your jobs again or your vote again.
Mm-hmm.
Those kind of things. Watching your documentary and kind of seeing these other documentaries, I guess it gets under my skin, and really makes you want to change it in some way. And my big question is, I guess, and you may not have an answer. I don't know what the answer is. What do you change in Eastern Kentucky specifically to get people, I guess, to get them on the track? And I know people talk sometimes about they want their kids to leave Eastern Kentucky, and how do you get that to change where there's something in Eastern Kentucky, you should stay in Eastern Kentucky. I mean, I don't know. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, I think it becomes a global in the local sense,
Mm-hmm,
right?
mm-hmm.
It's like that sign in Silas and Jason's Kitchen that says, think globally, act hillbilly.
Mm-hmm.
You invest
Mm-hmm.
resources like that can help the community and involve members of the community. I mean, of course, there's been, this long history of the, communities. If we're talking about Eastern Kentucky specifically, being literally mined for their resources, just
Mm-hmm.
things extracted and taken out. And, as a young kid growing up in the holler, Meat House Holler is where I grew up and where I lived for 18 years. It's sort of like down the road, take this fork, take that gravel fork. And we were the last house. Like, we were, again, if you're talking about, like, there were so many trucks and, they were always, the roads were always tore up and they were always putting oil on the roads to tame the dust. And, my mom was always sort of like, trying to navigate around these giant trucks coming out of the holler. So, like it was just part of our life, growing up. And people get attached to that and connected to that. And when there's no alternative, it becomes very easy to hold on to that old narrative. But if we have other opportunities, and there are, I mean, I'm certainly not going to sit here and say like, I don't know. I'm not prepared to say like where, anybody should live. Like people have to make their own choices. I mean, my path was, one where I did leave. That said, I was told growing up that I would leave, that I had to leave, that I had to go to college, that I had to get out. Like this wasn't something that I ever said I want. Like it just happened that way. And I'm grateful for it. I mean, I'm very privileged and, that I was able to leave my home and, go to college and then go away and have the opportunity to go to film school and build life in Los Angeles. Like, I think that's all, like, I'm very grateful, for that, but that doesn't mean that everybody has to leave and that the answer to, change is in that. And I think that's also, that becomes part of the popular narrative. And these stories are very powerful and these ideas that, there's nothing there and you need to go away. And, that's what I grew up being told.
Yeah.
But now I can see like, oh, how wonderful would it be if I could live more of a, I think a dual existence would be hard, but, I would love to spend as much time as I could in Kentucky doing work. And I certainly know there are people doing lots of work to bring in agriculture, to bring in business, to revitalize downtowns. I mean, again, like now that we're in the midst of a global pandemic, and we see our needs for retail changing and we see, Amazon, Jeff Bezos, not only going from a millionaire, but he's supposed to become a trillionaire in this, but as we see sort of Amazon like take over everything and all these other stores probably collapse, like maybe that will revitalize downtowns. I mean, it's just the cause and effect. It's so hard to know, but I think, one thing about a pandemic is that there is, it is a great equalizer and, people are, getting benefits, of course, all over the globe. But I'm just curious. I'm curious to see how like Eastern Kentucky, and other places, come out of this. But I also think, we have to when we talk about East Kentucky, I think we have a certain vision of that, and that's very specific to this war on poverty, aesthetic that was created in the, during that time. But of course, like, when I think of my experience growing up in East Kentucky and Pikeville, Kentucky, like it feels very true in a way to my experience in Los Angeles, as far as this idea of class, which that's sort of the thing we don't really talk enough about culturally. And I think that's a big part of the problem, is that we don't have language for people to say, like, what their resentments are about capitalism and about this greater structure. And then they happen to latch on to some, reality star who happened to become the president of the United States. It's like, is this even real? This life that we're in, and I digress, I know, but it's like, it's just also, it's also so complicated. But when I think about growing up there versus here, like, these class inequalities are so prevalent in both places. I mean, certainly there are 40,000 homeless people in Los Angeles, and there are not 40,000 homeless people in my hometown. So that's, a difference. But as far as, people struggling to, pay their rent and get by, and, that is something that people, that my next door neighbors can relate to as much as yours, as much as the people in Mead House Holler. So like, that's all true. And, there was a ton of economic inequality in East Kentucky. I mean, there's a lot of wealth in East Kentucky. There are a lot of, the thing you don't often see is like these big, beautiful sort of like the Bel Air of Pikeville, you don't ever see that.
The Mayo Mansion.
Right. You don't ever see that. So
and that brings me to a thing I wanted to kind of talk to you about too. There's the stereotype that we talk about of Eastern Kentucky, but there's also, I always hear the stereotype of California as well. I've had people who have moved to California, and then within like a year or two later, however long, I don't know, they moved back. And I'm like, well, what happened? Oh, I just had to get out of California. It just, it's just so different. And I'm like, what do you mean?
It's the same thing.
And that, I guess, that's another, there's a stereotype about other places that's like, that people in Kentucky have as well. But just, the big, I guess, thing that I guess holds down society, or at least, state to state, area from area, can be stereotypes that people just don't listen or want to even take that moment to get used to somebody that's different.
I think it must be part of the human condition, obviously, for us to stereotype, right? To do that. And I think we have different levels of understanding about the cultural harm, of stereotypes, depending on who they're about. So,
are you ready for the history quiz?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
All right. It's all about Pike County. So,
okay. Well, let's see how I do. I will do my best. I lived in Pike County from 1980 until 1998. When I graduated from high school, and then I moved to Lexington that summer, and I began college at the University of Kentucky. So I have been away from Pike County for like 20 years.
So far.
But I have been back many times, and I am a documentarian, and my job is to observe and document and talk to people. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah. So far, I gave this to most people. I did interview a guy who was Colin McCann, who is, but he's from Ireland. I didn't give him a quiz because obviously, he's not going to know any specific, or he may not. I guess I shouldn't assume, but so far, one person has passed it. And I've did it county by county for depending on where they're from. So,
First
question: who is Pike County named after?
I do not know the answer to this question.
Well, it is it's a tough thing. Zebulon. Zebulon.
There's a Zebulon in Pike County. Zebulon is between, and in fact, I was often thinking, like, where I live right here in Los Angeles, it's this community called Eagle Rock, and it's Northeast LA. It's right next to Pasadena. But I sort of feel like Eagle Rock is to Los Angeles what Zebulon or Johns Creek, where my granny Shelby lived. Zebulon's right next door to Johns Creek. In fact, Johns Creek is like within Zebulon.
Yeah.
I feel like Eagle Rock is to Los Angeles what Zebulon is to Pike County. So, so like, like they have like a body shop and maybe a video store where you can get some pizza, a couple little things. You're not going to find a dry cleaner there in Zebulon. But, okay, that's good to know. So who's Zebulon?
Zebulon Pike. That's his name.
Zebulon Pike. And who's that?
He was an explorer, and he discovered Pikes Peak. He lived 1779 to 1813. So he didn't really live that long, really. 45 years or 44 years.
That's a young man.
Yeah, but anyway, that's who he was. That's all I know about
Zebulon Pike, founder of Pike County. See, here's what we can do. We can schedule another call some other time, and you can give me the quiz again, and I'll get it all right. So
there you go.
I would like to have that option.
I'll give you a clue to this next question. Zebulon Pike died in 1813. Okay. 1813. He's dead. When was Pike County formed? And it was after he died, so it had to be after that.
How about 1814?
We'll give another guess.
1815. That's what I was going to say was 1815. No?
1821.
1821. Okay.
There you go. What is the highest peak in Pike County? And this one was hard. I might not be right on this one. It took me a little bit to the highest peak.
Is it Pine Mountain?
Yes, it is Pine Mountain. Very good.
See?
Birch Gap, I think, is the actual peak, but I don't know where Birch Gap is. So
Pine Mountain is a special place. Apple Shop is right there near Pine Mountain. We drove over that mountain when we were filming with those amazing filmmakers at the Appalachian Media Institute back in the summer of 2016. And we had a great ride in a Ford pickup truck, I remember. And my dad loves the Pine Mountain. I have family still in Letcher County. My dad was born in Letcher County, where he lived until he was about 10. So I loved being there during the making of the film, and have very fond memories of Pine Mountain. And I just got one right on the quiz.
You know about Pine Mountain Settlement School?
I do, of course. Yes, we filmed an interview. The interview that you see with the Appalachian Media Institute with Jerry Sebo James was filmed at the.
We go. I teach 5th grade at Crab Orchard, and we go to Pine Mountain Settlement School every year, and it's awesome. I mean, it's the best trip. I mean, we go for 3 days, 2 nights, and I mean, you would think it'd be crazy taking a bunch of 5th graders up there, but it's awesome. I bet. One of the best trips. We did not, though, however, get to go this year, so that was pretty big.
That's too bad.
Pretty big bummer. All right, next question. What river flows past, or you could say through, Pikeville?
The Big Sandy River. No.
Well, Levisos Fork. I mean, I guess you could consider that. I don't know. You might be right. I don't know. See, I looked on the map to try to find the Big Sandy to see what was.
Big Sandy? Well, let's see. We have the good news here is that we have
Google.
The internet here. So the Big Sandy River is a tributary of the Ohio River, approximately 21 miles long in West Virginia and northeastern Kentucky.
So it's So Levisos Fork is the one that goes through Pikeville.
Huh. Okay.
But it's a fork.
Okay. I've never heard of that. The Big Sandy River gets all of the.
Oh, I know.
All of the celebrity, because there's like a Big Sandy Technical School. There's Big Sandy Gap. Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not. We'll throw that one out. That might not be correct. I don't know. I had to look myself, but anyway. What counties does Pike County touch or border in Kentucky? Not Virginia or West Virginia.
Well, I know it borders Mingo County in West Virginia. It borders Floyd County. It borders Letcher County. I'm trying to think of 23 north. That's Letcher. Floyd.
I'll give you a hint.
Bingo.
I'll give you a hint. Letcher is the one it's the farthest south one. Floyd, I believe, is the farthest north one, correct?
Floyd's like east.
Okay, okay, so that's right. You got Letcher, then you got Floyd. You got two. There's one more.
Well, west. Floyd's west.
Yeah, west. You're right. There's one more to the north that.
Right. I'm just trying to think. Like, what is that? If I was going to go north out of Pike County, I don't even know where I would go. Like, what? What is? I don't. I don't know.
Is it
Martin County? Okay, yeah, I wouldn't have guessed that. I know Martin is a very. I've heard of it a lot, but I don't know where that is.
Yeah, Martin County. Mm-hmm. The other one. There's another one. I think it barely touches Knott. Maybe
Knott County. I was going to guess Knott. We used to go over there for football games. Mm-hmm. Not that often because it was kind of far, but
yeah. Well, oddly enough, we played Knott Central quite often.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. There's the counties: Letcher, Floyd, Martin, and Knott. I think it barely touches Knott, though. Barely.
Yep, that sounds right.
So anyway, back to or the final question, I guess. What any kind of future plans? What do you have going on currently? And tell us a little bit too about the stuff, other projects besides just Hillbilly. Some other things you've been involved in.
Mm-hmm. Well, I was a senior producer on an HBO series that launched a few weeks ago. So it was in April. It's called We're Here, and it's about drag queens coming to various communities in rural America, various small towns across the country to do a one-night-only drag show. We filmed the pilot in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. Mm-hmm. So that's a great series that I loved. I love being part of, and that's currently on. I have a couple of feature documentaries that I've been working on. There's one that I've been making for many, many years off and on about some of my former classmates from Pike Central who are in prison for life, for murder. And that's a piece I've been following off and on for about 15 years now. That one's evolving into a series format. I've been working on a feature documentary that takes place on Broadway in New York City, which of course has been greatly impacted by the pandemic. I would love to make a Hillbilly 2. Certainly, we get so many emails from people asking if we are going to do a follow-up, and I would certainly love to do that, but we don't currently have partners or broadcaster or financiers to make that happen. So if anybody out there listening wants to finance a documentary series, featuring some of the folks and other folks in communities and other states, I mean, I think it'd be great to expand, again, beyond potentially, our own backyard, if you will, to broaden the scope of Appalachia. So. So a lot, like I'm very, there's so many ideas and things that I want to make, and, rural America and Appalachia and Kentucky, these are places that I look for opportunities that allow me to return to my home. So, I've learned so much from being away, oddly enough, right? Like my point of view is so informed by not being there for so long, for better or for worse, right?
Yeah, and
no judgment. There's no judgment.
I really, all those projects that really interest me because it's rural America, and as we kind of mentioned a little, but giving rural America its voice, and per se, because oftentimes I think it becomes overshadowed.
Yeah.
So thanks again, Ashley, for coming in or coming in. We're doing this virtually, but.
We're connected.
We're connected. Thanks for coming in. Is there anything else? Where can we connect, or where can people find you at on social media and so forth?
People can find me at hillbillymovie.com. You can find a way to contact us. We get the emails. We respond to the emails. We would love to be able to find opportunities to connect with communities, across Kentucky and across other communities, not just Kentucky. I mean, this film has played across the country, from Alaska to New York City to Los Angeles to, it's played in Georgia, South Carolina, Texas, Boston, all over. But it'd be great to find opportunities that allow us ways to show the film and have community conversations about it. I think in an election year, the film is very relevant. So, in a normal cycle, we would have had screenings and things at universities in the fall, but maybe we can come together and do some stuff virtually. So if there are any educators out there or people who, want to host community screenings, we can certainly find ways to do that and to bring in Sally Rubin, who is the co-director and producer of the film, and also, other members of our team. Some of them are Appalachian. So, we're definitely interested in having the film reach new and unique audiences and expanding the life of the movie.
Mm-hmm. I totally agree and totally support anything or anybody watching this movie, especially if they're from Kentucky. But if not, I mean, even if you're not from Kentucky, you can watch this movie or documentary and kind of get something out of it.
People, it's a real conversation starter. So
it is. It definitely is.
And you can catch the movie on Hulu. You can view it on Amazon. You can view it on iTunes. You can go to hillbillymovie.com and reach us. I'm on Twitter at AB York. I'm on Instagram at Lady Gone Lovely. Thanks for inviting me to participate.
I appreciate it, and I appreciate you coming. And we'll hopefully, next time something comes out, a Hillbilly 2, you can definitely come on here again, promote it, and you're welcome anytime. So thanks again for listening. We'll see you guys next time.